All right, what's up, everybody? It's Fast Cars, Fast Money, and we survived the craziness that was the Truck Series race, and especially the Xfinity Series race at Portland, and then the truck race was at Gateway. So pretty crazy Saturday of racing, nonetheless. Definitely fun from a fan perspective. I know from a DFS perspective, it could have been either really good, maybe really bad for you. I know for us, it was a pretty good day. So, excited to hopefully carry that momentum into today's race, Sunday, the cup race at Gateway. So, we haven't been here before. This is really the inaugural race. It's sold out, which is awesome to see. You always like to see, a lot of hype and interest around the sport. So I'm hoping they can put on a good show for the folks out there in St. Louis. But if you're not familiar, if you didn't see the truck race, it's a 1.25-mile flat track. So it's kind of shaped like Darlington, but other than that, the Darlington similarities kind of the line, kind of stops there. It races more like a Phoenix, a Richmond. It's kind of, Martinsville, if you would pull it apart, has really flat corners. Um, so because of that, we don't, this is really the first time a lot of the drivers have been here. I mean, some drivers were here, but it was, years ago on a completely different car. So, what are we really looking at? We really want to focus, I think, on practice and qualifying, and then also looking at, how these drivers performed at Phoenix, Richmond, and Martinsville, but also how did the race play out at those tracks as well? How were drivers able to pass? How, um, was there a lot of passing? Was it on pit road? Was it, were there a lot of cautions? Was it long green flag runs? Like just that type of stuff to keep in mind too when it kind of comes to strategy. Um, One thing that a lot of people have been talking about a lot this week is, will they actually be able to pass? Unfortunately, the next gen car has had some issues at the short tracks with either the shifting, the diffuser, dirty air, um, and just kind of getting stuck behind the other cars and more or less kind of becoming a train. So from a entertainment standpoint, sometimes those races aren't the best because not a lot is happening. But from a DFS standpoint, sometimes those are the best weekends to play because they potentially can be the most predictable. So it'll be interesting. I know some people think you won't be able to pass. I think other people think you will, just because you might be able to run different lines in the corners and the straightaways are so long. Um, so we'll see. I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy and sit back, watch it, and enjoy. So if you can't pass, how are you able? If you can't actually pass on track, one way you can pass is on pit road. So maybe if you're between two drivers trying to figure out what driver has been better, this season, mainly on pit road, and maybe plugging them over versus another driver. One thing that's not similar to Phoenix, Richmond, and Martinsville is actually the lap count. So it's only 240 laps. I think that's 300 miles. So it's a relatively, shorter race, I would say. There's still a good chunk of Dominator points available, 60 for laps led, 108 for fast laps. But it's not like Martinsville where we had 500 laps or, Richmond 300, plus and, all that stuff. So keep that in mind. Let's actually get to the good stuff, the driver by driver breakdown. So, like we've seen with the Cup Series, lap leaders can come from all over the place. But when we look at, Larson down the Chastain, like a lot of drivers in here, you're not going to be able to play all of them. So you're going to kind of have to pick and choose. Larson's interesting. He gives you some place differential upside. He is pretty expensive. So if you are plugging in Larson, it might get a little bit harder to get a little bit more of a balanced lineup in your, or, balanced drivers kind of into your lineup, just depending on who else you're plugging in as a potential dominator. But could ever count out Larson. He can show up at any track, and he also gives you some place differential upside as well. But if you are playing Larson, I think track positions could be really important. So you really want to try to pair Larson with a driver who starts much further up front in the field. That way, that other driver that you're plugging in is leading until maybe Larson takes over later in the race, if that's the narrative that you're playing out in your head. I also like Kyle Busch a lot this weekend. He's been, arguably one of the fastest cars on not only the short flat tracks this year, but also on pit road as well. And if we do get into this situation where you're not able to pass, I can see his pit crew helping him out and giving him the track position. His pit crew has been, much better than Larson's this year. So I like Busch probably as the top play out of the expensive guys, but you can't get out Hamlin. Hamlin's been running a lot better recently in recent weeks. He does have kind of the highest starting position of the expensive guys. My only fear with Hamlin is historically he's known for being good on short flat tracks, but his practice times don't necessarily reflect that he's going to be a top car. Now, he did qualify well, so maybe they were able to make some changes on it. I just feel more confident in some other drivers up front that I think they're going to be the early lap leaders, and I'd rather play them, save some salary, and then potentially try to get more of a place differential, later Dominator in my lineup once they get up to this range, whether that's, a Busch, Larson, or maybe even Chastain. Truex just kind of seems off this weekend. I know there's been a lot of retirement talk kind of, looming over his head this weekend as well. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to eliminate him from our player pool, but he's probably my least favorite interest of this top range. Chase Elliott seems like a strong play as well. He gives you the most place differential upside of the drivers here. My fear with Elliott is he just is going to stall out around 7th or 8th, which is good for, real life NASCAR and the points lead that he has. But, from a point per dollar play DFS, I just don't know if that's going to do it for you. Ross Chastain has been fast every single week, every single track that we've gone to this year. His practice times again suggest he's going to have a fast car on Sunday. Can never count out Chastain as a driver that's going to get to the front of the field. So I would say Chastain and Busch are probably my two favorite plays at the top range, probably followed by Larson. It's just they're more expensive. It's the first time Chastain has reached the 10K mark. So you might only be able to play two of these drivers, potentially only one of them, or you might even just be able to skip this range entirely, depending on how confident you feel in the 9K and the 8K range, or maybe even the 7K range too. One guy I like a lot coming in that I liked a lot coming into this weekend was William Byron. Byron has had the best driver rating on these short flat tracks this year. He completely dominated the Martinsville race. The only thing that's a little concerning with Byron is, with all that just being said, you would have assumed that, hey, he's going to practice a lot better than he did. He's going to qualify a lot better than he actually did. His practice and qualifying times are slightly concerning. However, he does give you a lot of place differential upside, and I'm hoping that, his performance on the short flat tracks earlier this year, how he ran at Phoenix, how he ran at Richmond, how he ran at Martinsville is going to be more indicative of how he's going to run at Gateway today. So I like Byron as a place differential, late lap leader type of play that you can pair, just like we were talking about with Larson, that you can pair with potentially an earlier lap leader. One of my favorite plays on the slate today is Ryan Blaney. I would say Blaney and Logano are probably my two favorite, Dominator plays, at least according to practice. Both of them were extremely fast in practice, not only on the short run, but on the long run as well. And their qualifying times reflect that too. If it is difficult to pass, they're going to have the track position. They're going to be starting towards the front of the field. I'm hoping they can maintain that track position all day, work their way into the top 5, top 3, eventually get to the lead, pick up some fast laps. And they're pretty cheap too. So I like going to the Penske drivers here, Blaney and Logano specifically as, maybe some early lap leaders or just lap leaders at any point in the race. And then trying to pair them maybe with some place differential, lap leading upside type of plays, maybe like a Byron or a Larson or a Kyle Busch, some type of that lineup construction is kind of the way I think I want to go with. I'm going to be building multiple lines, but that's kind of going to be the approach that I'm taking. I don't know if I'll really get to Reddick. I'll probably have a couple of shares of Reddick. It's just, I feel so much, better about some of the other drivers around him. But, it's, if you're just looking at the numbers, I mean, his qualifying time was great. His times in practice were attractive as well. He's just pretty expensive for $9,400. I wish he'd almost starts like a couple of spots further, or I wish he started, a little bit further back and gave you some place differential. My fear is just he gets kind of stuck in that 4th to 7th range for most of the day. Same argument with Christopher Bell. He's been historically good at these short flat tracks. He has won here in the past, I believe. So he actually does have some track experience here. I think the Truck Series, maybe Xfinity Series. I'm not sure. I forget what series it was, but the only thing I'm concerned about Bell is his practice times. His practice times didn't really reflect that he has a top car, but then he went out and almost qualified on the pole. So maybe that team figured something out. Maybe not a lot of people will go there either. So, anyone who basically starts top 6, top 7, top 8, I think has a really good chance of leading laps today. But let's also not forget some of the drivers who just missed out on the second group of qualifying. Drivers like Kyle Busch, for example, who starts 12th, like he just missed that second round. So we know he has a pretty fast car. Like I said, we're kind of already talked about Logano. We like both him and Blaney a lot today. Bowman's pretty cheap. I think he's going to carry a lot of ownership. I'd much rather go to Byron. I know the price is significantly different between the two. I just think Bowman's going to draw a lot of ownership, and I don't know. His practice times are concerning, and I actually much rather just drop down and play Harvick. Harvick has been, ironically, a little bit more consistent. His driver rating on the short flat tracks has been better than Bowman's. His practice and qualifying times weren't great, but we've kind of seen this throughout Harvick. He, throughout the race, he kind of figures it out, and that team is usually there at the end. He was even contending to win at some of the short flat tracks earlier this year as well. So I'm hoping that team can get it figured out for Sunday. Kurt looks like a pretty interesting GPP option. Just barely missed out on that second group of qualifying, being able to qualify in the top 10. Also had top 10 speed in practice. He's pretty cheap. He could potentially be a lap leader or a fast lap getter for you to plug into your lines. Suarez just not really jumping off on the practice or qualifying times, and he didn't really run well either, looking at the short flat tracks that we were at. Briscoe is going to be interesting. If the narrative is true that, hey, this is a track that you get caught in the dirty air, it's going to be a single file train, you're not going to be able to go anywhere. Like Briscoe to potentially get out front and lead you some laps. Actually quite a lot of laps if that's the case. And you're potentially getting a Dominator in your lineup for, $700-800. So if you plug Briscoe in your line, it's really easy to get, 3, potentially even 4 other lap leading potential plays into your line. So I don't mind, going to Briscoe. And even if he doesn't maintain the lead or loses, a couple of spots, I still think he's shown the speed. He won on Phoenix earlier this year too, which is a short flat track. So I think that team can contend and be up there for most of the day. Stenhouse, we've been playing Stenhouse a lot at kind of the steeper tracks, a lot of the intermediate tracks. They've just been pretty bad at these short flat tracks. And I think he's going to draw a lot of ownership. So I'd much rather pivot to Austin Dillon. Looks like my notes didn't save here. So I'll get my notes, finalized and post the spreadsheet over on Twitter. It's at FastCarsFM. Dillon had a really good running at Martinsville. He was basically one of the only cars to contend with Byron, but that was partially because this team was able to help him out so much on pit road. His practice and qualifying times are really concerning. It just looks like this team is completely off this weekend. So I might bump him down to medium, but as of right now, he's high. We'll probably change this before the slate locks. Eric Jones is another interesting play. He laid down a really fast time in practice, but it looked like his car kind of fell off a little bit as the run went on. And I think his qualifying time's a little bit more reflective of kind of where this car is at speed. And if we think that it is a long green flag run, I'm concerned that his team, might kind of get caught back in that mid pack area. Kozlowski hasn't really been that great, but he starts deeper in the field. It's hard to see him really going backwards. Zane Smith is also in the RFK machine this weekend. He starts 32nd. So both RFK cars just don't really seem to have great speed, but they seem like safer cash, place differential type of plays that aren't really going to hurt your lines. Eric Almirola, I don't think is going to get a lot of ownership. I think he's another GPP type of option that can stay, maintain his running position, maybe even potentially move forward. Austin Cindric's going to be kind of the contrarian play if maybe you're fading Briscoe and you think maybe Cindric's able to get the early lead. He's definitely more of a GPP type of option, but he was fast. He had great times in practice, and his qualifying time packed it up as well. So don't ignore the numbers here. Our fear is just Cindric hasn't really been able to put a full race together in a long time, and starting second and falling back in the pack is really going to hurt your line, especially if you're playing a lot of other drivers in your line who are starting up towards the front. Like, you don't want to just completely stack the front of the field. You want to make sure you kind of have a nice balance of drivers in the front, drivers in the middle who have some good finishing potential, and maybe drivers towards the rear of the field who have some good place differential upside. So, maybe Cindric's one of those contrarian early lap leaders. It's a good way to potentially get different. Not getting to Bubba Wallace or Cole Custer. AJ Allmendinger, Penrose went out there and put the car on the wall. So he would have had to start from the back anyways, but now they're going to a backup car. So the team didn't even post a qualifying lap. So AJ's going to come into this car, no practice, no qualifying. He's going to go into it completely cold, but he starts or I guess Parker Kligerman starts DFL technically, but Allmendinger can't lose you any points. He's pretty cheap. He's going to be extremely high owned. You can make the argument that these short flat tracks race technically, kind of similar to a road course. That skill set should carry over. He's just going to be really high owned. So I like him a lot for cash. If you're playing tournaments, I don't mind, potentially fading him and trying to get different. If we see a lot of tire issues with the Goodyears popping, drivers wrecking out, having issues, then I think Kligerman could be kind of like a pure attrition play. They're also going to a backup car. Their primary car caught on fire. So I don't think this car is really going to have great speed. Unfortunately, it'd be cool, see Kligerman have a good day, but I think a lot of drivers need to wreck out for him to really take advantage of, this opportunity. Not going to get to McDowell. And then there's really only two punt plays I really want to get to today. It's going to be Ty Dillon and Zane Smith. I don't think you really want to overthink this. I think Ty Dillon is the pivot play off of Zane Smith. I think everyone's just going to plug in Allmendinger and Zane Smith. So maybe trying to get a little bit different and playing Allmendinger with Ty Dillon, or playing Ty Dillon with Zane Smith, or some combination to get a little bit different. Or you're like, hey, screw it, I'd rather just play Allmendinger and Zane Smith together, and then I'm going to differentiate my lines with some of my dominators. I think that's a really strong option as well, and there's not really anyone else down there that I really have any interest to. So yeah, a little bit of a longer video, just kind of going down through the drivers. We'll get this spreadsheet updated and finalized up on Twitter. It's at FastCarsFM, but Yeah, that'll do it for this weekend. This is going to be the final video for the week. And then we'll catch you guys next weekend, but we'll still be around. So if any questions, comments, drop them down in the comments below or hit us up on Twitter. We'll try to help you out the best that we can, but best of luck today, guys.